Hey everyone, I'm excited to share with you today AI indexing, a software that I built to dramatically accelerate the process for generating backup book indexes. And today I'm hoping to show you exactly how the software works and also what the index outputs from it are like. So with all that said, let's get into this. You can see here the landing page for a project that I just created. I'm going to index the first chapter of the book that I wrote, and well, let's just get into it. What's happening right now is that an AI model is going ahead and reading through all of the pages in this book, and based off of its understanding of the meaning of those pages, it's extracting the key indexable terms from the book. You can see it just finished going ahead and extracting these terms, and now as a user, I have the ability to choose to add additional terms, to remove terms that I don't think are especially relevant. For example, this chapter 6 term here. And to assist in that process, I can look at the contexts in which these terms are being used. For example, you can see here that on page 11 of my book, the term China was extracted. And the context for China on that page is that it is used to refer to the Chinese government or state. And I can just continue to go ahead and look at these terms to understand the instances in which they may be relevant, the instances in which they may connect to one another, or the instances in which I might simply want to delete those terms. So after going ahead and doing that process comes the really powerful component of this tool, which is that often you can have terms that are deeply related to one another, terms that ought to be subentries of other terms, terms that ought to be cross-referenced, or terms that actually are getting at the exact same macro term and that should be listed under the same term name. For example, in my book, China and, say, Beijing, that wasn't extracted here, but those two things might be quite similar given that they both, in this case, are referring to the Chinese state or the Chinese government in my book. So we can go ahead now and actually start this term relationship generation process and have an AI basically tell us those term groups to then allow you, the human indexer, to actually make decisions on which terms should be merged together, which terms should be sub-entried, and so on. You can see here that it was just able to do this, and the term economic cutoff, which it is summarized here, is suggested as a match to the term economic cutoff on China. That's exactly right. And as a book indexer or as an author, I can just go through these different groupings and actually, make decisions on which terms should be together and which terms shouldn't be for the purposes of my backup book index. I'm now going to go ahead and do much of this review myself. It doesn't take very long, and I will get back to you when I'm finished. Perfect. Now that I've made all of my relationship decisions, I can move on to the next stage of the indexing process, which is to look at the AI-generated sub-entries for terms that are used with some frequency. The idea of this being that any good backup book index will not just have a single reference to a term with a bunch of pages on which it appears, it's also going to specify the exact ways in which those terms are being used. And with the assistance of AI, you can dramatically accelerate this process. As you can see here for the term China, I have all of these different sub-entries for it for any given page on which it actually appears. And I can actually verify whether or not the AI is correct in making these determinations on what sub-entries are appropriate by simply searching the term directly in the book. For example, by clicking on China on page 1 here, the search tool immediately took me to page 1 and then proceeded to highlight the ways in which China appears here. And as you can see, the sub-entry geopolitical competition is quite accurate given what I have on this first page. So now I can just go ahead and continue to make edits to these terms. For example, I can change China on any given page. and then also make edits to the sub entries in the event that I disagree with them or think that they ought to be modified. For the most part, let me reassure you, they're quite accurate as they are very tied to what is being said on any given page of your book. Ultimately, once that process is done, I can then export the final index to either a docx file or to an IXML file, which is compatible with the indexing software Syndex. So I'll go ahead and export it to a docx now, just so you can see what the final result looks like. All right, you can now see the final index for the first chapter of my book, which I generated in only a matter of minutes with the AI indexing software that I just demoed. You can see here that it's formatted according to professional indexing standards, and while it's not perfect, I certainly am going to be spending some more time with this index trying to streamline the terms and generate any other relationships that I think are appropriate. This really has gotten me 80 to 90% of the way there and having a finalized index in a fraction of the time that it would have taken to get there without the assistance of this software. I think that this is a really powerful way to accelerate the way in which indexing is currently done, and I'm very excited to see what you all are able to do with it.